Happy Friday, everybody. January 5th, 2018, the first Friday of the new year. I've drilled both my Hypercell Fused and the Hustle HYB. I'll have videos up in the next couple days. Initial impressions are promising. I'm having a bit of writer's block, though, with the opinion video for the Fused. I mean, it's funny to say or to kind of ascribe a personality to the ball, but the Fused takes itself seriously. I mean, it doesn't play around. There's really nothing funny about it. I mean, the one for the HYB wrote itself, and I won't spoil it, but there's a pretty easy and interesting angle on that one. Or you know, like the IQ Tour, there's nothing funny about it. I mean, I suppose if you just said 9 in like several different languages, because that's what it gets all the time. I mean, but that's not a whole video's worth of material. So now I also had a bit of block with the podcast this week too. I didn't really have a topic. I want to start talking about like bowling stuff, but I don't want to go somewhere and then read something, read some news, and then come here and just kind of regurgitate it or spit it right back up. Usually what I do is something happens in bowling, it gives me some kind of talking point or something to go with. And but you know, nothing was really coming to me until I had a realization about a sweeper that I bowled this past weekend. Now, I'm the undisputed king of almost. I live around that cash line at tournaments pretty permanently. I mean, it's a rare tournament of any kind if I'm like solidly in the cash line or I'm nowhere close to it. This particular tournament, though, I have a long history with, or the series of these tournaments. There's a couple guys that run some good tournaments here locally, Mike Adamski and Dave Waslow. Some of you might know Dave from the Bowlers Show, recently ended the Bowlers Show, but those of you that listen to him would know Dave. I don't make their smaller tournaments very often, but try to make as many of the holiday tournaments as I can. They're 8-game sweepers at the same house. And how it usually works, I start in the middle of the house. And then games 1, 2, and 3, I break even. Doesn't matter how it happened. Normally it's just 200, 190, 190, or 190, 200, 200, or something like that. But I'm dead even for 3 games. Games 4, 5, and sometimes 6 are always huge. And I flip down the low end of the house and give just enough back to finish right just a couple spots out of that cash line. Now, this tournament, which was on WTBA Paris, they're usually on a sport-ish pattern of some sorts. We started in the middle of the house again. Game 1 went a little bit better than normal. I was in the 2 teens. Next game, I got a couple rough breaks, but still pulled out a 190. Game 3, started to see some transition. Made a couple good ball changes. Ground out another 190. And so, as predictably as possible, first 3 games, I'm dead even again. Game 4 shows up. I've got it figured out. Games 4 and 5, I shoot back-to-back in the high 240s. And then it's time to flip to the low end. So, I mean, it's just the script I mean, I've bowled dozens or a dozen of these things, and the same thing happens every single time. And it's going exactly the same again. So, this house recently got new lanes, and it doesn't matter. The old lanes are new. Lanes 3 through 8 are just absolutely awful to me. It doesn't, reaction's awful, carry's awful. If anything, if there's a possible way for anything to go wrong on those pairs, it just does. Well, the day of the tournament, I decided it wasn't going to happen again. Those pairs weren't going to get me this time. I'd gotten up to plus 100 with a couple big games, put me up the top 10. Throwing it well, I was super lined up. I didn't see it changing. I felt probably the most confident I've ever felt going down to the low end of this house. And this was the day I was breaking the curse. It was just going to happen. Now, mind you, I bowled a lot of these. I bowled over a dozen of these over the last several years. I've never, ever, I literally have never broken 200 on any 3 and 4, 5 and 6, or 7 and 8. It's never happened. I think my high game might be 180 or 190. So, you know, those tournaments are those pairs are where my tournament always stalls. It always dies without fail, no matter what I do. This is some serious next level voodoo stuff right here. I mean, it's especially because of how drastic it is. I mean, what happened? I can shoot 3 240 plus games and then go down there and it's instantly 160 or 170 for just absolutely no reason whatsoever. It just happens, and I'm just in utter disbelief. I can't even process it now. I'm in just utter disbelief watching it all happen again and wondering, like, how is this even going like this? But that day was the day. I was shaking it off. It wasn't going to happen again. It just couldn't. I was going to shoot 240 again. I was going to lock myself into the money, and we were going to be fine. Well, it started out pretty promising. I had the front four. Things were looking exactly the same way that they'd been on the high end. I thought finally things are going to go my way. No such thing as curses. No such thing as bad luck or superstitions or whatever. Fifth frame, I tug a little bit. I leave a 3-6, no problem. Had missed a makeable spare all day. Chopped the 3 off the 6, and then here's where it got weird. I went back and sat down. I thought, you know what? Front four, just unlucky break. If I stay clean, I get off the pair with 2-teen. If all I have to do is stay clean, get off the pair with 2-teen, that's fantastic. That makes me really happy. I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to stay confident. Get right back up the next frame, strike. I think the next frame was 10 spare or another strike or something. Then I left a pocket 4-10 in the 8th frame. Just a little high. Both of them were wiggling. They were still wiggling when the rack set them back down. So, heck, Susan. I spared the 9th frame, came right back in the 10th, and left a 4-9 for 2-0 something. At this point, I'm frustrated, but I realized that I still shot my first 200-plus game ever in a dozen-some tournaments on the low end, on a pair on the low end of the house. I didn't gain any spots, but I didn't lose any either. I think I was in 9th after game 5, ended up 9th after game 6. And so I thought, okay, cool. It's hard to be upset when, even though I lost a lot of pins those last couple frames, you know, I still had 2 games left. My look was still really good. I was still throwing it good. So I'm thinking everything's still kosher. I mean, we're fine. Next game, things started grinding to a kind of a slow halt. I never lost my look, but I started getting tapped. I missed a couple more easy spares, and it was just kind of a slow bleed for the next 2 games to end up being the first place out of the money again. Now, I was legitimately upset, not really because of the money. I didn't lose that much. If I'd have cashed, it wouldn't have been serious money anyway, and for kind of several days after that, I was pretty bitter because I thought I did everything right, and or at least, I mean, I thought I did everything right, and somehow the low end just screwed me over again because we're bowlers. It's never our fault. Well, yesterday it hit me. Yeah, I'm still bothered by it several days later. Yeah, I'm still bothered talking about it right now. But it's kind of for a completely different reason than I thought it was going to be for. I reacted completely differently to what happened this time. Normally I go into it and I'm just ready to, oh my God, low end, here we go again. Just ready to do battle or just kind of prepare myself to not get my hopes up. But what happened when I chopped that spare in the 5th frame of game 6 is then I went from attack mode into my prevent defense. I thought I was staying positive. I thought I was staying on top of it. But the second that happened, my mind went right to, you know what, if I stay clean, I'm out of here with 2-10 and we're still looking good. And that was the turning point, or kind of the beginning of the end, because from that point through the last couple games, I wasn't thinking about striking anymore. I wasn't thinking about shooting anything big. I was focused on staying inside that cash line. Hashtag winning attitude. Now, that's a pretty dumb thing to do considering I just came off a couple big games. I dodged what usually is the fatal bullet, and when you're in a sweeper on something tough, inside the top 10 in a rough game near the end of the tournament is over 200. I actually picked up a couple more pins and stayed in the same position, like I said. But all of a sudden, I wasn't going for the throat anymore. I was settling. I was trying to play it safe. Meanwhile, the guys who I write all day, people like Tom Hess and Brad Miller, and a couple really good local guys here that some of you might know, and Dylan Burns and Mark Henninger. Mark actually shot 872 last night with a new fuse, by the way, so congrats to Mark. They all shot 230 plus in Game 7, while I'm playing damage control to a 180. Now, they had a rough game in Game 8, but everybody in the house did. But they had such a big lead after 7 that they all got paid. Tom Hess ended up winning. Brad Miller finished 2nd. While I just nickeled and dimed myself right out of everything. I didn't want to change anything even when my look continued to decline. I thought it's good enough that I can still hit the pocket and pick up easy spares. I was really slow to make moves because I want to make absolute for certain that I had to move instead of... The best players in the world are the ones that make the moves before they're really forced to make the moves. They see the writing on the wall, they just make the move. They don't wait for it to screw them. They stay ahead of everything. And I didn't do that. I was doing that earlier in the day, and then all of a sudden, I just didn't trust myself. And it's just like when an NFL team goes into that prevent defense to prevent any big plays, but that's all that ever ends up happening. I mean, Tom Brady just dumped 6-yard pass after 7-yard pass, down after down, all the way down the field and into the end zone in a matter of a minute and 15 seconds. I mean, so in retrospect and for all practical purposes, I gave up. I didn't trust myself. All of a sudden, the decisions and all the ball changes and the moves and all the stuff that had gotten me into that place in the first place, that stuff wasn't good enough anymore. You don't go to a tournament and try not to lose. The point of a tournament is to compete and try to win. I'll be the first to admit that I just kind of walk in hoping to cash and make a little money. I look at the field and I say, well, okay, well, that guy's here, that guy's better than I am, that guy's better than I am. I do my little math in my head and I think, okay, well, based on who's here, if everything shakes out the way I expected, I should end up, kind of right at the bottom of, right on the cut line again. And that's, like, what kind of an attitude is that? I mean, now, I really do pride myself on the calculations and the predictions and paying attention to the numbers and all the intangibles. And the real problem is that I'm a betting man at heart. But the problem that comes from that is that when you enter a tournament and you don't bet on yourself, whether you think you're better than everybody else or not, if you don't bet on yourself, you're going to lose. That's just all there is to it. Now that'll wrap it up for this week. Look for videos for both the Fused and the HYB coming in the next couple days. Those ought to be a treat. And the long-awaited Sonic is now just a couple weeks away. So next couple days, got some videos coming out. Thanks for watching.